we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler coming back to you for another episode of the LEO First Podcast, and I'm excited because I'm in California again. I'm sure if you saw one of the prior podcasts, I was filming out at LAPD. Today, I'm filming out the offices of First Responder Wellness. With me today, I have a very good guest. I actually met him through LinkedIn a couple of months ago, or actually probably last month.
Yeah, I think it was last month. Yeah, it's recent.
And he offered for me to come and take this tour of the facilities and some of the programs they have going on. And what I saw today was so cool, so amazing, because I haven't seen it in other areas. Not saying there's not, but just the concept, the different training programs, and some of the things that I have experienced throughout this day shows me that there's a group of people that have built a structured program to help first responders get through several phases, and we'll kind of get through that throughout the podcast. But as you all know, I always like to bring guests on that's either been in law enforcement, are in law enforcement, or has a nexus to it. Chris has it all. And I can tell you, based on some of the things he's going to share with you today, some of the things we talked about throughout the day, you're really going to appreciate it, because a lot of us go through things and sometimes we think we're alone, but come to find out, we're not. There's a lot of resources out there like First Responder Wellness that really can help us out at all levels. I know you guys have seen some of the other guests that's been on, and I wish back then I had a resource like First Responder Wellness I could have recommended to them just based on what I saw today. And I know going forward, through future partnerships and other things, I know I have at least one company that I have been around that I can say, you know what, I have enough trust and confidence that I can refer people to it. So, guys, I know you're going to, and gals, of course, you're going to be in for a treat, because things you're going to learn about and hear is going to be really good. But, you know, I always like to ramble early on. But let me give you guys a quick introduction of Chris. He's been in law enforcement for 29 years. He actually retired last year as the chief, highest level of Redlands PD. He's also served time as the president of the California Police Chiefs Association. Did I say that right?
Absolutely.
Whew.
Absolutely, yeah. Nailed it.
For some of my other guests out there, you know when we say chiefs of police associations, it's usually chiefs of police. Here's police chiefs, so I have to get these acronyms right, and I have to understand what parts of the country I'm in. But California is probably one of the largest, if not the largest, police chiefs association, I would believe, probably in not the nation. I don't know if New York, Texas, or Florida, but outside of them, I can see California being the highest. I mean, I know at one point, I remember us talking about the amount of law enforcement agencies in this state, and between chiefs and sheriffs, I think you said 338?
About 338 just municipal police departments, 58 sheriff's departments, and then it goes, districts and special police departments, all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty extensive.
338 municipal. Okay, so I was clear. I try to combine them, so I shortchanged some of the departments here. But needless to say, guys, he has a wealth of experience, and some of the things he has done up to this point, it's very, I appreciate, because one of the things that I drive a lot is wellness in law enforcement. And he's doing it even a step further. He's part of something that's doing wellness for all first responders. So I love what I see here. I love what I've experienced. And without much ado, let me go ahead and give it over to Chris so you guys can hear more about him, because you know me, I get excited and I keep going. So Chris, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, Michael, first off, thanks for having me here today. It was great having you on the tour. It was so fortuitous for us to connect on LinkedIn and then get to this point. I hope you really learned a lot today and are able to take something back. But for today, just kind of the same thing. I want to talk about what led me here. You know, a 29-year career in law enforcement, and I had a blast. You know, I know not everybody has the same experience, and it's a different career for everybody.
Correct.
I had a blast. You know, 29 years. I told you earlier, I'd started out as a crime analyst, became a police officer, detective, crimes against persons detective, sergeant, lieutenant, commander. The last 5.5 years as chief of police, and great timing. So I become chief of police, and then, you know, not too long, we're into COVID, which was exciting. And then right after that was, of course, the summer of George Floyd, which even in a city like Redlands, which is a very good, you know, it's a nice, normal, middle-class city here in Southern California. You know, our agency is about 91 cops and about 150 total employees. Really supportive of law enforcement, but we had people come from the outside to protest in our city, including some people from our city, about, you know, all that entailed. And it was just something new to us. You know, we're near LA, 60 or so miles east of Los Angeles, so we
Not far at all.
Yeah,
Not far at all.
nothing's too far in Southern California,
Yeah,
right?
no, nothing, no.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we would see a lot of what, you know, these larger departments are dealing with, and of course what happened in Portland and Seattle. But we hadn't experienced a lot of that. And we had our first, what we believe, since our city was incorporated in 1888, we think it was the very first protest, counter-protest in our city. So it was an interesting time. So I was chief during all that, but I loved it. Like I said, I loved my whole career from start to finish. I retired right after I turned 50, and that was due to a back injury. You know, something out of my control. But luckily, it was kind of funny. I was still on the board for the California Police Chiefs Association. I was president, and, you know, our board, like I told you earlier, you know, we're looking for people to buy us great dinners for our board. So
We do like to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a foodie. Hey, anybody
Yes.
watch my IG stories or anything? Like, Michael, what are you eating now? Hey,
Yep.
whatever they put on the plate that looks good, I'm at least try it once.
100%. So the guys that own First Responder Wellness, they treated us to a nice dinner for our board, and then we were invited to come on a tour the following day. And this is June 2023. So come on the tour, and I was blown away. Kind of like you got to experience today, just knowing these resources exist. Somebody put all this together. We don't have to guess anymore. And so I talked to one of the owners, Devin, and I said, hey, you know, I don't understand. You know, these are great resources. I'm 60 miles away. I've been a chief for 5.5 years. I've been in the business 29 years. Why have I never heard of this? And this is the kind of thing you don't want to keep secret. And so the idea was it's relatively new. And so they just hadn't had the outreach yet to get to everybody. So oddly enough, that was June 2nd. My retirement was set for June 9th. I retired on June 9th, and June 20th I was working here. And really my job here, I'm director of strategic relationships, and my job is to talk to chiefs, sheriffs, city managers, county supervisors, basically anybody that'll listen so that they know about the resources that we have and we can provide to first responders. So, you know, when we talk about first responders for our programs, we're talking about anybody in that chain from a 911 call all the way through incarceration. So we're talking about dispatchers, records personnel, crime scene technology or technologists, you know, police at every level. So local, state, federal police. You know, we've had people come from all the 3-letter agencies. We've had, you know, sheriffs, border patrol, you name it. And fire, so all fire services, so local, state, and federal fire, and anybody in their departments. And then corrections. Corrections is huge. You know, another tough job that sometimes people tend to forget about. Massive. And you know, we've even had like emergency room nurses, so people who encounter trauma. You know, so you know, you're a nurse. You get gunshot victim. I mean, you could need services, right? We've had district attorneys who deal in, you know, primarily in their child sex crime cases or gang cases. So really anybody in that chain that's exposed to trauma is appropriate for the services that we have. And, you know, when you approach retirement, especially as a police chief, you have a lot of people coming to you. You know, people want you to sell this widget or that widget, right? We want you to sell body cameras.
We need the widgets, though.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. We need
100%, 100%, right? And I did sales before I became a police officer, and so I knew that wasn't really my path, right? So having a career that is so focused on helping others, you don't just decide that, oh, well, June 2023 rolled around and now I'm going to retire and I'm not going to go help other people.
Correct.
That wasn't in the cards for me, and for some it might be. You know, everybody's different, but for me, I wanted a job with purpose. And when I found this group, I was really blown away by the fact that everything here is culturally competent, right? So everybody gets it. A lot of our therapists are former police officers, former firefighters, spouses of firefighters and cops, children of firefighters and cops, and talk about experience. They probably have more experience than anybody. Just ask my kids. It's
they go through it. They go through it too.
They do, right? Especially, and for some of us that work in a relatively small town with a very unique last name, and your kids go to school in the same city.
Trust me, I had to practice your last name a few times.
Yeah,
I tried to practice my own last name a few times. Yours, so I know. Yeah, it's not most common in the area. So,
exactly. So it's like, no pressure, guys. You just have to be perfect. Outside of that's it. You just got to be perfect. But understanding that that exists, and when you find something that really speaks to that passion, like I said, you just can't give up helping people, and that's what I found with this is, what can I do next? And so now this is a great way for me to kind of turn it around. You're, as a chief, you're so focused on helping the community, right? And you're helping your officers, but you got to make sure that when you find something that is your next story, that it's something you're really bought into. And so that's what I found with this, because literally all we're doing is helping the people who are the helpers, right? So we're helping that group stay healthy, get back in the fight, do what they've got to do. And it's really something that I find a lot of meaning and purpose in because of our population. It's special people get into this line of work. And for working for an organization that is solely built to help them, because I didn't mention, but when I say it's first responders, it is only first responders.
Correct.
So you're not going to go in there and find the crackhead off the street.
Correct.
You're not going to find a Newport Beach housewife. It is only first responders.
Yeah.
And that's why it works. That's kind of, people, what's the secret? People will share when they're with a group of people that are their people.
Yes.
And we are each other's people, whether we're police and fire, corrections, dispatch. That's our people, right? Yeah. And so it's easy to kind of share in that. So when I found this, I was no expert in behavioral health. Shocking. I know, very shocking.
Not on paper, at least. Not on paper.
Yeah.
In 29 years, you learn about that.
Yes, that's true.
I do tell, because people always ask me, like, early on in my career, they're like, how do you know how to do all this stuff? I said, because you get on the scene, you're a counselor, you're a therapist, you're a psychologist, you're also the enforcer, you're also the you're trying to interpret law like an attorney.
Yep.
I said, you're doing all of this, but that doesn't mean you have it all paper, but you're still going through it. So,
So when I came here, not having the credentials of a behavioral health expert, I was exposed to everything that we do. So for the first 2 months I worked here, I was embedded in everything we do. So when we talk about a group setting, because most cops are skeptics, right? At the end of the day,
of course,
we're skeptical, right?
Of course, you got it.
Everybody lies to us. It's just like, okay, you start rolling your eyes, and that's what I did here, because I went to the tour and they're telling me that all this stuff works, but I wanted to see it for myself. And so I was skeptical that you would have a group sitting around in a circle of first responders sharing their feelings until you see it over and over and over again. And that's what I came to believe, was it's just because it's just us, and so the walls can come down. We've had similar experiences, literally with the same people, right? So you go on a call, some dispatcher took the call, the officer shows up, fire shows up, the guy goes to jail and is incarcerated. So like all of us could have dealt with literally the same individual, right? And even not the same person, but it's the same things over and over. So I would see it over and over, these folks sitting in these circles and sharing their deepest, darkest concerns and secrets and fears. And I really started to become a believer, and then we offer a whole host of methodologies to get people in a place where they can treat the trauma. Because our belief is that even if you come in and you're addicted to alcohol or misusing alcohol, you're addicted or misusing drugs, sex, porn, infidelity, buying things, or working nonstop, if you have any of those maladaptive behaviors, underlying that is trauma. Because they say that the average police officer will experience 188 traumatic events in a career, and the average person roaming around society will experience 2 in a lifetime. So think about the magnitude of that. So underlying all of our maladaptive behaviors is trauma, and that's what's got to get treated. But when people come to us, they're up here. They're like a 29 on a scale of 1 to 10. And we have to bring them down here so that the trauma can get treated. And so we have a whole lot of ways to do that, whether it's the group therapy, individual therapy, equine therapy. So we have people that, it's easier for them to connect with a horse because horses just kind of get at our emotions for some
It's
reason.
like canines. I mean,
Humans.
we talk about
Absolutely,
we do. I mean,
right?
I think you guys have at least 3 dogs. I saw.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have canine partners. We do yoga, meditation. We do this thing called breathworks. We do something called sound bowls, which, again, the skeptic in me came out. I'm like, sound bowls? They're like, yeah, basically it's a guided meditation, and she'll be guiding you in meditation. She'll hit this glass bowl and then, make it vibrate. And I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, come on.
Bowls?
Yeah. I'm like, this is ridiculous until you do it. Yeah. So I go do these sound bowls. I've never been a relaxed person. Like, most cops, we're coming in type A, hard charging kind of people.
Head on a swivel.
Yes, exactly.
Sleeping.
Exactly. Yeah. We're hyper vigilant, all those things. I've never been more relaxed in my life. I did these sound bowls. I mean, it creates this vibration in the room, which is insane. It's hard to really describe. I know everybody on your podcast now is going to think I'm insane. But
no, they're probably gonna Google it or hit YouTube.
Go hit sound bowls.
Yeah, they're gonna be sound bowls. They're on YouTube right now. Like, what is a sound bowl? Like, you're like, bang.
It is so.
They might doze off. Look at the sound bowl.
It's so unbelievable. But the idea is that not everybody's going to connect and come down to where they need to get treated by any one modality, right? So that's why we offer all these different things to get people to that area where they can get treated. And so where we treat them is the first responder wellness. So that is literally a place where when all the wheels have fallen off the bus, unfortunately for somebody, that's where they go. It's a 60 to 90 day program. It's residential, so we house people and so that they can come to treatment. We have 2 different phases. Phase 1 is to kind of, like I said, bring them down to where we need them. So if they're addicted to alcohol or drugs, we have to detox that so they can get into a good place to start the trauma treatment. In phase 2, they live in our houses. They come to our treatment center 6 days a week, 6 hours a day, and Correct. They do intensive treatment. But then they go back home, so that this isn't like people always hear about these places in Malibu where it's like this big bubble, like where the stars go, right? You go get in this bubble for treatment for 30 days, then you come out, and then they're always back and forth and back and forth. We realize that treatment for first responders is very unique. Because even from veterans, so veterans, they go see the horrors of war, do what they have to do. They come back, they need PTS treatment, right? They get treatment. They're not going back to war. We're not sending them back. Yeah. Our people are going back.
Yeah. You have a bad call on a Wednesday.
Yes.
At Thursday you're back to work. Or actually, you're going right back to the same call. Like you're like, hey, I went home. I took a maybe 6-hour nap, ate breakfast, I'm back to work.
Exactly. And it's the same, you come here for 90 days and do a treatment episode, you've got to be prepared because you're going to go see more trauma. Yeah. And so a lot of our stuff is really focused on resilience and building people's resilience. So in our phase 2, the afternoons are basically like real life. They're living in a house, they're grocery shopping. So they're walking down the aisle with all the booze. You saw when you went out to one of the houses, a block down the street is a liquor store. Yeah. They've got to walk past that place.
Because when you get back home, I mean, you're going to have all the options. So
exactly. They're going to hear sirens. They're going to see fire trucks. They're going to see real life. And so I think that's a great way because they're still in our program. So if something triggers them, then they can come back in the next day and talk to their therapist and go over that and build that resilience so that by the time they're done, they're going out kind of with a more of a suit of armor to let this stuff kind of deflect instead of just taking it all in. So it's here in Newport Beach, California, which is it's a beautiful location.
That it is.
Our houses are all here in Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley. Yeah. It's a great place to be. It's very relaxing, and the idea is that we've got to separate folks from what's bothering them to some degree so they can get this treatment and then get back out there and do it. And 90% of our people actually go back to work. So many people are afraid that when they have a post-traumatic stress injury, they're thinking their career's done.
Correct.
That's the presumption, because one of the biggest stigmas that we have is like all of us had to go sit in front of a psychologist at some point to be allowed to do these jobs, right? Yep. You got to pass the psych. You take all those crazy tests, do you love your mother? Do you hate your mother? Do you like peanut butter?
I'm like, MMPI, I think?
Yeah, yes, MMPI too, exactly.
Woo!
Yeah.
I took that way too many times.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I felt different after I took the test.
Yeah, and that's part of why police officers in particular have a very unique and probably not a great view of psychology, right? Because we had to get through that. That was like a really tough thing for a lot of us. You're sitting here thinking about all this stuff, and like you said, then you take the test and you're like, maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. All those weird questions.
How do I score on this?
Exactly.
Like, what does this tell me? What does this say when I'm done?
Yep. And then at the end of the day, you've got a psychiatrist or psychologist sitting there and either thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to like the Roman Empire, right? You get the thumbs down and you're out.
You're like, gosh, okay, come on, give me a thumbs up, please.
Exactly. And so there's always that fear in the back of our minds that, that is giveth can be taketh away, right? And so, if you had to go to a psychologist to get the opportunity to work as a police officer, a psychologist can take it. So a lot of us fear that, if I'm ever suffering a psychological injury, that it's just going to be done. That's not the case. Like I said, 90% of our folks go back to work, which is great because a lot of this is just getting through the trauma that you've got, building your resiliency skills, and then when our people come, the very first day they're with us, they start working on their discharge plan, right? Because you can't expect to go through this process and after 90 days, you're done now, all that's in the past and I'm good to go to the future. No, it's work. I mean, the folks that come here, they're doing work, they're putting in work, and the work continues when they leave. So we set them up with a culturally competent clinician. That appointment's made before they ever leave our facility so that when they walk out of here, they're going to be feeling good. Yeah. And the worst thing that can happen is like, I feel good, I don't have to do anything else. But that's not the case. You got to still, keep doing the therapy, keep doing the healthy things. There's a real focus on the 8 dimensions of wellness here so that, you're trying to keep all of those balls in the air at the same time so that you're healthy with social relationships, you're healthy with your family relationships, you're healthy with, physically healthy, you're mentally healthy, you're financially well. If you have all of those things going in the right direction, your life's going to be a lot better, right? And so that's kind of the idea, is to make sure that those things are starting to get planned from day one so that when you leave here, it's not like just walking off the end of a pier, falling out of the Pacific Ocean.
I do all this stuff now. Dang, this hit me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's our treatment center.
You did. I know people probably heard 60 to 90 days.
Yes.
They're probably thinking about the admission side.
Yes.
On actually how to get in.
Good.
And also not just the admission, but what if I can't come for 60 to 90 days?
Yeah.
I know you guys have retreats and other programs. So
exactly.
what about the admissions?
Yeah. So admissions couldn't be easier, right? We have one phone number. You call, and with that number, we start a couple of things. One, most of the people that are here on their own personal health insurance, right? So there's no big out-of-pocket cost to the department. There's no big out-of-pocket cost to the individual outside of your normal copays. So when people call, we can verify their benefits, and we're networked with virtually all the major providers, whether it's Aetna, Blue Shield, Anthem, all of those we're in network with. Correct. So they will pay for the stay here. And we have somebody on staff, full-time staff, that his job is basically to make sure that process is as easy as possible. Because the last thing you need to be worried about when you're here is paying all those bills, right? So he helps. He covers all that to make sure everything is smooth. The one thing that's important, even with the copays, we will not let cost get in the way of an admission, right? So if you have a $1,500 copay, for example, and you're depleted, because no cops, as soon as they start having symptoms, raise their hand and say, I'm going to go get treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately. That's where we need to be, right? Yeah. But that's not where we are.
Correct.
Our best estimate is that about 5 years after any normal person in society would go to seek help, that's when a first responder is going to come seek help. 5 years. So many of them have burnt through all their time at work. Many of them have burnt through all their money. And so we understand that. So if you have a $1,500 copay, we'll put you on a very liberal payment plan, because we do have to collect copays because, we're an ethical program. So we do have to collect the copays. We've had, foundations pay and pick up when nothing else works. So there are options. So I don't want anyone to ever think they can't afford it, and so they don't call because they can't afford it. We will make that work out.
Okay. So that's the admission side.
That's the admissions.
So what about some of the retreats and some of the other short term?
Yeah.
And I think that, because I know one of the things that you all talked about a lot today, which I like to harp on too, is proactive.
Yes.
Like prevention versus reactive. And I know you guys have retreats for police and sheriffs.
Yes.
You guys have retreats for peer support teams.
Yes.
But you also have retreats for family,
Absolutely.
which I thought was very cool and unique. So how do some of those retreats work?
Yeah, so the retreats, on our sign here, so we have Shift Wellness, and that's kind of our retreat part of the company. We're family companies. First Responder Wellness is what we just went over. Shift Wellness is our retreats. We have a beautiful retreat center. It's in Idlewild, which is up in the mountains in Riverside County here in Southern California. Beautiful. Great temperature year round for the most part.
That'll be the next tour.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, gotta get you up there. But yeah, as you mentioned, we have retreats for just about everything.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
at least 6 to 8 from what I can tell from the brochures that you all had.
Yep, and it kind of started, I think, with the peer support retreats, and those are great because your peer supporters are out there doing a very difficult job. They already have their day job, right? Yeah. They're a cop too, likely, dispatcher, whatever the case, and they're
it's
on
a
the
collateral
support
duty
team.
for most
Exactly.
of them. Yeah, most of it's collateral. Yeah, they're doing it on top of all their normal duties.
Yep, and they're taking on the vicarious trauma of their coworkers, right? So if I come to you and you're the peer supporter and I'm laying a bunch of stuff on you,
correct?
You've got your own stuff.
Yeah,
you've got your work.
It's like being a
now
leader.
You're getting mine. Exactly.
It's like having a leadership title. You're not just you don't just have your personal trauma.
Yes.
Now you compound it with everybody else's. And a lot of these people are not in leadership roles.
Yep.
But they're taking on leadership type of responsibilities.
Absolutely.
Because they're carrying everybody's trauma.
That's right. Yeah, they're there, with the best intentions. They're there to help their fellow brothers and sisters, which is, there's nothing more noble than that. But it takes a toll. So instead of singling out, oh man, that peer supporter, looks like he or she's having a really tough time, we should send them on a resilience retreat. No, it's nice to bring your whole team, bring your peer supporters up, or 10 or so at a time. The retreat isn't billed as a team building workshop, but it absolutely is.
Yeah. And you do have a team building workshop on top of all that.
Yeah.
So there's a whole other way,
Because, it's funny, one of the guys I work with here, he always talks about peer support teams, and this guy has been at the very forefront of peer support teams, Jeff McGreevy, and he always jokes, and he says that every peer support team has owners, renters, and squatters. And so the idea of the retreat is to turn the renters into owners and get rid of the squatters. Yeah. Because you need more people pulling on the end of the rope. Because like with any peer support team, it seems like just a handful of people, and sometimes it's only 1 or 2, are doing all the work. There may be 10 people on the team, but 1 or 2 people are doing all the work. And so part of the retreat is about sharing that load and about coming up with a plan. How are we going to operate? They get to know each other really well. They get to experience wellness, right? So to make sure they've experienced a therapy appointment. So that's part of it. Everybody gets to have the quick therapy appointment. You get to have a massage, because we carry a lot of trauma in our body physically. And so learning what, the value of a medical type massage to kind of get that stuff out.
I'll be trying those. I do massage. I've never done medical one. As soon as I heard you say it earlier, I was like, ooh, I got to figure out who does medical massage. I got to go try one of these.
2 thumbs up, highly recommend. Yeah, I was doing those for years, even before I had to retire from my back injury, because that would help.
Yeah,
I mean, just
makes sense.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. It's awesome. They do all kinds of like I said, almost like team building things. They shed trauma while they're there. So there's an opportunity, and the way these things are led, it's just natural for this stuff to fall off. And I don't know what we put in the water, but as soon as people get up there, they are ready, they are open, and they are shedding everything they can. Yeah. And it's quick. They're 2-night, 3-day retreats, but they're incredible. And like you mentioned, we have the trauma and resilience retreat. So those are for the ones where, if you have an officer that was involved in a shooting, or stabbing, or had been stabbed, or those cases too, because a lot of times, it's not the shooting that bothers the person. It may be an incident where they just felt their life was in danger. It wasn't a shooting or something, but they felt their life in danger. Even in just a physical fight or something like that. But it gives an opportunity to work through that kind of trauma. If you have, an officer or firefighter with young kids at home, and they just, how it tends to work is you just happen to be the guy up for the next 3 infant deaths. It just, I don't know how that happens, but every time I ever went on an infant death, it was when I had small kids. That's why I told you some of the things I used to see when I was younger without my son. Yeah, I said I don't know how I can do it now. Exactly.
Because
it's brutal, and because you're looking at this, and either you're looking at the parents thinking that could be my wife and I, and what is it that's separating us from that, the most extreme tragedy, or we've had people tell us, I'm looking at the deceased child and I'm seeing my child's face, and so those kinds of calls mess with people, and rightfully so. It's not normal. People shouldn't have to see that, but it is. And we've chosen careers where that's the reality.
Correct.
So the idea is to start tracking what your employees are experiencing, what they are seeing. And if you throw in a divorce on top of all this stuff, that's another that's one of those factors, that escalates their need. And sign them up for one of these retreats, because, the resilience and trauma retreat, that's a 4-day retreat, because there's just a little bit more that's got to get done to kind of process that trauma.
I mean, it's probably at least a day of just recognizing that there is.
Yeah, exactly. And, and it's important to note too that it's not an either or. So, if you need the first responder wellness center, if you need that kind of intensive treatment, then you need to be there. Yeah. And a retreat isn't going to be sufficient for you. The retreats are more preventative, like we were talking about, all the preventive measures. That's something that's kind of like the oil change on your car.
Yeah. And it may tell you need something. You might go through it like, oh man, this really opened up, and I can't, like, I didn't realize how much something was impacting my life. And now I went to a retreat like, oh, now I probably need to get into a 60 or 90-day program.
Yep. Yeah, that, or continue on with regular therapy sessions.
Yeah, correct.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, this can uncover all kinds of things. So good and bad, but the idea is that we're experiencing these things as a group, and sharing these stories as a group, and then getting through it as a group. You mentioned we have a police chiefs and sheriffs retreat. We have a fire chiefs retreat.
I forgot about the fire chiefs.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah.
I get sometimes so stuck on the LE side.
Exactly.
Sometimes I forget. I was like, wait, no, he did tell me that he had the thing.
Yeah.
So with all these retreats, like, how has it changed you as a person? Because now, I remember one thing, and I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast up to this point, but I remember a few things you've said throughout the day was, throughout your 29 years and being a chief, you didn't really see these resources. Yeah. But now, since you're in a seat and in a position where you can be involved, because I think you even went through the treatment program as a observer. Just see how it's going. So you won't just be telling people something that you don't know.
Exactly.
How do you think that's changed you as a person?
Yeah, I mean, one, it's changed my complete outlook on the place for behavioral health and wellness in any first responder organization. So to me, and you don't know what you don't know, right? So I didn't know this when I was an acting police chief. If I knew that now, we would treat wellness as fundamental as handling calls for service, as doing follow-up investigations, as handling evidence. It would be fundamental to everything that we do. So it would be, when we're thinking about recruitment, retention, you name it, we would have to work wellness into all of that. We would make sure that we were doing appropriate training, that all of our people knew about these kinds of resources, because it is that important. Because at the end of the day, if we're not taking care of our staffs, then what are we doing, right? I mean, we can't look at people as just a resource to burn out. And so many people are leaving these careers from burnout, right?
Yeah, just simply burnout. I know a lot of people call me and just for that, like, hey, we just want to learn about how to handle burnout. I was just like, sometimes just take the day off.
Yeah.
just don't go to work or go see the therapist. Like, sometimes it's not as I mean, it's sometimes difficult to make that next step, but it's not necessarily difficult to once you think about, oh, this is all I have to do. So with all this that you've been saying about first responder wellness and how it's impacted you, if someone was looking to find you and more about first responder wellness, how would they do that? Yeah,
so I mean, all of our emails are here, all of our websites, the counseling team, we didn't go over that, but that's, short-term counseling, and it's all by culturally competent clinicians. Correct. So these are people that know policing, they know firefighting, they know these careers, because I talked to people in our treatment center who had gone to a general therapist that wasn't a culturally competent therapist, and it was a firefighter. I remember him telling me, he's like, yeah, I went and I started opening up to this therapist, and within 5 minutes, the therapist was crying hysterically and fired him as a client. Told him, hey, I can't handle this. I don't know how you're dealing with this, but I can't take it, and sent him out the door. Imagine what that does to somebody.
Yeah, you're like, man, right? my issues are that bad. If you can't handle it, exactly. Well, if you can't handle it, then maybe I can't handle it either.
Exactly. And so when you have the counseling team, you won't have that. All of our clinicians have proven that they're culturally competent. They're very, very good at their jobs. They understand it. Like I said, a lot of them are former law enforcement and fire. A lot of them are spouses and children. So they get our environment. So that's a huge part of it, is just having that resource, and that's the counselingteam.com. We have over 300 departments that contract with us for those services.
So that'd be the first thing, the counselingteam.com.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's training. So that one too, all of our open trainings, we have a wellness coordinator course, which is great. So if your department is starting up a wellness unit, send them to the wellness coordinator course. It's California Post approved, which is great. And that kind of course will speed up your development of a wellness unit by years, because it literally just lays it out in a great outline of this is what you need to be looking out for. This is what you need to do. Really, really good course.
Or if you're just wondering what the industry standards are right now.
Absolutely.
It gives you updates as well, so you're not trying to guess or try to Google everything.
Right.
Or YouTube, how to start a wellness coordinator program.
Yes.
Let's see what YouTube has said. Let's see if some person that's like in another country has formed this training for us.
Absolutely. So it's all relevant. It's all new resources, and just I can't recommend it enough. So all of our training is there at the counselingteam.com. Firstrespondernwellness.com. That's where all the information on our treatment center is, and then Shift Wellness is where the information on the retreats are.
LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. So yeah, Chris Catren, and would love to connect with people. Always reach out. It's really important that we're having these conversations, because, like I said, you asked about how it's changed me as a person. It's just really solidified my view on we've got to be out there helping our first responders.
We gotta be on these. We gotta be you gotta be on these streets. So to speak.
Absolutely, right.
You can't be looking from the office trying to make it work.
Exactly. And when you sit down there for months talking to first responders that are struggling, it really, really hits it home for you that we've got to do something better. We've got to take care of people from the minute they get into the career through retirement.
Every minute
bottom
counts,
line. And we have trainings that are designed for many, many different stages throughout that career. We have families on the front line at the beginning, and at the end we have retire well. So the one thing we never train for is how to retire, right?
Yeah.
You just think, well, I'm financially okay. If you are, hopefully you are, and if you are, that's not it though. What are you going to do? There's 24 hours in a day. And
you're telling me why I watch reruns of SVU.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I just thought Elliot. I thought he's been gone.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, yeah.
He's back again.
No doubt. So it's a matter of planning these things out, and to know that the resources exist, and that's what we are. We aren't your typical vendor out there trying to sell you something. We are resources. If there's trainings you want, great. If we can help you with culturally competent counseling, great. If you need the First Responder Wellness Center, absolutely perfect. Retreats. But we're not out there just selling, because I didn't want to get in. Like I said, I didn't want to be out there just hawking something. I wanted to really make a difference, and I think that's what this has allowed me to do, is to really be out there, try and help folks that are doing the hardest jobs.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, so what final words do you have, if you have any? Them?
I mean, reach out. The one thing that we have to do is stop suicide. I mean, when more officers and firefighters are dying from suicide than from line of duty deaths and even collisions combined, that's a problem. We have to stop it. I know the same is true in the veterans community. There are resources for that. There were fewer for first responders, and so it's really important that people reach out. You're not alone, and we're always one phone call away. So you can always call us, and we will direct you to the resources. If we aren't that resource for you, we'll make sure that help is gotten. So I just appreciate the time to talk about these things.
Yeah, it is perfect, and I want people to know that. I had another guest on, and they probably see this episode before they see this one. Same thing she said.
Yeah.
Erica Kirk. She was like, "Hey, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to face these battles by yourself, and
Yep.
you are going to go through battles.
Exactly.
And we don't want you sitting at the looking at a pill bottle or looking at a gun or
Yep.
looking at a rope, whatever that might be, or
Yeah.
looking at a knife,
Yep.
and then saying this is my only option, because it's
Exactly.
not. You have a list of resources, especially here in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
And it is nice. It is nice. I tell you that. Like the city and the facilities is nice. So it's not a matter of that, but we want people to know that there's multiple resources out there. There's multiple people that want to see you succeed, and there's ways to do it. And the mission process is a phone call away
Exactly.
to see how you can qualify or not. You don't have to be in the state of California.
Yep.
You guys mentioned that
That's right.
only 67%
Yeah,
of your
ish.
are California based. So
Yep.
that leaves another 33%. And obviously with the company that's only been around, give or take, since 2018, there's a lot of expansion. That's why people have not heard about
Exactly.
them as much. But the idea is to touch as many first responders as possible, obviously grow and build. So
Yep.
I think you guys are doing that. So folks, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I hope you learned a lot about first responder wellness, because it's always good to have direct knowledge of resources, and I'll make sure that I put all the information in my call notes. If not, you can reach out to Chris on LinkedIn. And you can reach out to me. That's why you're watching the podcast. You can get me on LinkedIn, IG, YouTube, Facebook.
Yeah.
I would say X, but I only have like 40 followers on X, so that won't be very helpful to you. You can try, but I may not see that message though. The other platforms work, but regardless, it's good to know that we have good people, men and women that in and outside of law enforcement that's trying to help first responders and everybody trying to make that connection. So once again, thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. If you ever have any questions, reach out. If not, enjoy your time out there. Don't face it alone and be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.